How are we doing tonight? I'm going to be tying a fly I'm going to call the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So here we go. This is just a fly I'm making up. Alright. Starting with my typical eagle claw, using the larger of the 3 hooks. Here's the hook. It's a bait holder. It's got the barbs on the top and the barb at the hook. I'm going to go ahead and press down those barbs, like I always do. Also, these hooks again have a bend to them, which is not great for what we do. So I'm going to try to straighten that out. Okay, there we go. It's a little better. And then I'll press down the barb at the hook also. And close it off. Not tight enough. Do it there. It's better. Okay. For this fly, I'm going to be using fire orange unithread in a 8/0. Oh, you can't see it. There it is. Basically, it's hunter orange. Okay, go ahead and put a base. The base is probably a little overkill, but that's okay, because it's just string. Now, start with the bushy tail part. Use some marabou. This is white. Make it a little bit longer than the body. If I don't like it, you can always grab it and break it off flat. But I'm going to start right there. This will also help build the body up, make it thicker, make it a little squishy for when the fish bite it. I like to go under here. Just helps bind it down a little bit so it doesn't slide out. Okay, this very bushy tail, which is good because that's what this thing is called. Go ahead. Run down the hook. Right about there. That's a little too much. Go back a couple of turns. I'm going to put eyes on this, and I don't want this to be too far down. There. All right. Okay. Now, this is a fluorescent yellow micro-chenille. You can find chenille for crocheting or whatever it's called. You use yarn to make things. There we go. But this stuff is very fine, and I've never seen it. I've looked and looked at places like Michael's and Joann's and places like that, and I've never seen this stuff. So anyway, so I'm going to take this Now, there's a couple of ways I could do this. I've got a bright feather, kind of a bright green right here that I could tie on at the same time, and after I run this up, I could wrap the feather around it too. Could also put this right behind the eyes here. I think that I would like to put it right behind the eyes. So I'll go ahead and run this up. And I'm just going to wrap it around the body, touching turns. Tie that in. I did choose this orange on purpose because I did want it to be very bright on the tip like that. Probably could have been cool too if I put some of the orange here at the tail. Maybe I'll do that on another one. Okay, next step. I'll take this feather. Now, I don't want this to be too bulky, but I do want it to wrap around the head right there. I think I should tie my bead eyes in. So if you have a ceiling fan with a bead chain, you can take your bead chain, take off whatever little handles on the end of it, and then you can cut the beads in twos. And you can take this, you could do this with any kind of thread and a hook if you wanted to just add some flair, and you just go around the hook and between the eyes several times one direction and then several times the other direction, and it starts to square the eyes up. And then I'm going to go back a little bit behind here. I really like the contrast of the orange and the yellow on that. Now back to the feather. I'm going to take this feather, I'm going to strip off, let's see, I want it to be flaring back, so I'm going to strip off this side. Tie it in there. Wrap it, yeah, I want to clean off this side. So I just grab the barbs and pull them off the shaft of the feather, the quill, all the way down. Get these fluffies off so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm sorry you couldn't see that. This is only going to be a couple of turns, so this is plenty. So I'm going to stand these up like that. I'm going to take this end, I'm going to clip it off smaller. Like that. Now, this is going to tie in right here. And I can go ahead, probably snip this off. There we go. This is a weird piece sticking up here. Okay. There's a thing you can get called hackle pliers. Look like that. You squeeze here and it opens up. It just helps you hold the feather. Like that. I'm going to trim off this big stump here. Get it out of the way. And then you just wrap it around, working your way forward, touching turns. Trying not to overlap the last round. And you just cross it with the thread. Make a couple of turns tight. Then you come in carefully. Hopefully you don't cut off any of the feather you just tied on. I might have, who knows. Then you hold those back. Now, because I'm trying to make this have a little bit of flare on the head, I'm going to pull this back and put a considerable amount of this thread on it, working my way back a little bit so that it shows like that. And then I'll go between the eyes some more. And then I'll go in front of them and build up this nose. Alright, I'm going to put a half hitch. And the half hitch is you hold your finger above the hook, take the string around your finger but above the hook so it crosses, and then you put your finger down so the cross is on top of the hook, and you just pull the string off of your finger so it falls down below the hook, and when you tighten it, it tightens around. More time around the finger but over the hook, flip it down and tie it tight. And then when you tie it off, you go around the hook over your finger again, but behind the last tie, and then you snip off the string. You go through the first loop, over the second string, pull that string through the loop, and back to where it was over your finger, through the loop to the second string. Come on. Grab the tag in, pull it through, and then just as a trick, you can take it off your finger with something pointed, so you're holding that part, and as you pull it, it comes closer, and then you work it right where you want it. You get that tight, and you can do that several times to use up that extra string, because sometimes it's kind of a waste when you see your pile of clippings like this, and it's full of all these pieces that you didn't use. So you can fluff up that hackle and get it kind of where you want it. And of course, every time you use it in the water, it kind of resets itself. So that's basically the tied fly. And take your nail polish hold these back so that you don't get nail polish all over them. Just kind of put a drop right here where you tied. Now, there is another thing about these bead chain balls. When you cut them, sometimes the wire that holds them together will stick out of that hole, and it has, because you cut it with wire cutters, sometimes it'll be sharp. So sometimes I'll take some nail polish and I'll go right over that hole when the wire's in, and that will, when it dries, it'll keep that from popping out, because it could, if it came out just right, it could pop out and break your leader. I mean, it's very highly unlikely, but it could happen. So this is the finished fly. Very bright head. Got these eyes that are popping. Again, I think that I may have hit these feathers when I was trimming, but you know what? It's still buggy looking. When it hits the water, it's still going to be okay. And really, you could tie this without that wraparound, and you would have the eyes, you'd have the bright front, you'd have the different color bright body, and then this big fluffy tail that'll undulate quite a bit, and it'll look like a crappy jig or something. And if you don't like that much feather for the tail, you can take and just tug this and rip off and make it more square. So like I've got 2 layers here, got a short and a long, so I could take that right there and trim those off, and it would be a more square tail. But with as much I got going here, I want this to be a big contrast. I tend to like it fluffy and to where it makes a lot of motion whenever it swims. So there's my bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I hope you tie it. I hope you like it. I hope you fish with it. I'm waiting for the opportunity to get out and fish some with the flies I've been tying. Some of them are tried and true, and I've used them several times, and some of them I'm just making up for the first time. So, or it's a different version of the same one. So, hope you enjoyed the tying. Hope you learned something from it. I know that it was a big change for me whenever I watched YouTube and learned how to fly tie, and started doing it just on a random evening when I felt like winding down and being creative. So, like I've said in other videos, sometimes you tie an amazing fly, and sometimes you get done and realize you just tied a bunch of crap to a hook. But either way, it's creativity, it's trial and error, it's learning, it's fun, and you don't have to have amazing materials. Most of these materials I've had for 7, 8 years, 9 years, and I just keep tying with them because I've still got some. I don't tie all the time. I don't sit down and tie a whole box full of flies, but I'll sit down and tie 1 or 2 at a time, or just come up with something. So hope you try it. Hope you enjoy it. I know I did. So thank you for watching. If you're watching, thank you for subscribing. If you're subscribing, I have 1 subscriber, Marcus. Thanks. It's very, very cool to see that. So I hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're learning something, and we'll see you next time.